You know, Rayman deserves so much better, Ubisoft. Stop being assholes, and just give the people what they want. Just bring back our buddy Rayman. We've waited more than long enough. Come on. Time to stop stalling.
Well, while we wait for Ubisoft to fucking listen and bring back the Limbless Wonder, how about we go back to 1999?
1999, what a year. CTR, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Silent Hill. A nice amount of great games that year.
Yes! I know they're all PS1 games! Believe me, B!
That's besides the point. We also got Rayman 2 on the Nintendo 64, and I have actually played that version of the game, and, you know...
It's a great time, despite the terrible draw distance with the lums and the cages.
The development of this game is actually quite interesting, though. Instead of it being a 3D platformer, it was originally going to be more like the first game, that being a 2D side-scroller. The reason why they went with the 3D instead was because of the simple fact that 2D was sorta in its dying age, with 3D being the new hot thing for gaming in the 90s, thanks to games like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Banjo-Kazooie, and the obvious Super Mario 64.
And if the world-famous Super Mario is getting into 3D, you got yourself a bit of an issue.
So they decided to scrap the idea, but instead of developing Rayman 2 right away, they needed to learn their skills in 3D and learn on what worked and what did not. And that's how the video game Tonic Trouble was born. It was simply a test game.
Now that Ubisoft have learned from Tonic Trouble, it is then time to go back to good old Rayman. Michelle Ancel and crew are all ready, and just like that, Rayman 2 was officially released on Halloween 1999. What? You don't believe me? Here it is. Proof. Proof that I'm not lying. Although, it does actually make somewhat of a sense that this game came out on Halloween, because this game is so well loved that it will actually fucking scare you.
Rayman 2 is considered by many to be the best non-Mario 3D platformer ever made. But is that true? Now, for the sake of this video, I will be playing the Sega Dreamcast version because it is usually seen as the best port of the game out there. Why not the N64? Like I said, terrible draw distance with the collectibles. Why not the PC? I don't feel like spending money. Why not the PS1? Way too cut down on content for no reason. Why not the PS2? Way too bloated for no reason. Why not the DS, 3DS, or iOS? They're all essentially just ports of previous versions. So without further ado, let's take a look at Rayman 2: The Great Escape. Well, let's load ourselves a save file and hop right into the game. So, the story in this game is pretty fucking dark. It's about slavery of all things, which is just wild to see in a cartoony platformer. A narrator tells us on what has happened to Rayman's world, saying that the robot pirates have taken over and reduced everyone they found into slaves.
They've taken everything and reduced our people to slaves.
By the way, this narration is exclusive to the Sega Dreamcast. Yeah, how cool is that? Even if the narration did exist on PS1 and PS2, but done by Lee the Fairy instead. We'll talk about her in a bit. The game then shows a big blue creature named Glowbox being dragged towards a cell, that being Rayman's, and it turns out that both him and Rayman are friends. While all seems lost with Rayman being powerless, Glowbox brings back a gift from Lee the Fairy, which is a silver lump. Bringing some of Rayman's powers back, with no time to lose, you make your escape and into the forest. However, Rayman and Glowbox were unfortunately separated, forcing you to go find him and Lee the Fairy.
This story is great, and I really do appreciate the dark tone here. It's done so well. Well fucking done, Ubisoft. Just the intro, and already I think this game's a work of art.
But who exactly is responsible for all of this? It is none other than Admiral Razorbeard. What an awesome villain with such an intimidating design. I would personally prefer if he interacted with Rayman throughout the game though. Similar to how Ripto would keep making fun of Spyro in Spyro 2 as the game goes on.
Enough about that shit though. What about important stuff, like controls and abilities? When it comes to controls and abilities, Rayman 2 has quite a lot to offer to the table.
The normal controls are as you would expect them to be. You know, A to jump, and A again to do Rayman's helicopter spin glide. B to fire projectiles, analog stick to move. However, to move the camera, you use the X and Y face buttons, which is a bit odd, but you do get used to it. And you use the right trigger to show your inventory, and the left trigger to lock onto targets for fighting the pirates, which I'll mention later. You do get taught this basic stuff via optional text with this flying frog named Murphy that you can just walk past, and I think that was a smart move. No forced tutorial. If you already know what you're doing, you could just ignore it all. I swear, the only other game that does something similar is Banjo-Kazooie. Why haven't so many other games out there not done anything like this? I mean, come on.
But the game really does get much more interesting when there are a bunch of different mechanics and control styles to mess around with, and is, in my opinion, one of the highlights of the game.
I absolutely love all the different mechanics in this game so much. There is basic and boring shit like wall climbing, monkey bar-esque swinging, normal climbing and flicking switches, but there are expansions to your control style in the game, and that's where Lee the Fairy comes in. Lee the Fairy is the one that gave Glowbox a silver lum in the beginning of the game, and once you free her in the second level, you get another silver lum. This is a recurring part of the game, by the way, to make Rayman stronger. Lee helps you 4 times in the game. The first, you get the permanent ability to swing on purple lums, which is a ton of fun and enhances the platforming. The second time, Glowbox gives you a silver lum to make your fist stronger. Just hold the B button long enough and whoosh! There are also these golden fists to make you even stronger.
But can I just go off topic and point out something about the projectile upgrading that I love?
As you evolve with your fist, the projectiles that you fire change their look too. In the beginning, it looks weak, then it has a glow effect making it look a little bit stronger, and then it turns orange, showing that it is maxed to full power. I don't know, I just always love the fucking attention to detail. Back on topic though. In the third time, you get the temporary ability to fucking fly. Yeah, fly. But like I said, it's temporary, and only on this one level. But damn, they sure did make the most of it. Finally, the fourth time, which is the final boss where Lee the Fairy saves you from falling to your doom.
You may think that we're done, but you are so fucking wrong.
We also have other things like swimming. Now I know what you're thinking, swimming sucks in 3D platformers, and you may be right about that with most platformers in 3D, but trust me, Rayman 2 is an exception. The swimming controls are just so natural in Rayman 2. You use the analog stick to move around and the triggers to go up and down, and that control style works way better than it might sound. What can I say, the swimming in this game is fantastic. There's also sliding in the game, and that's also a blast. It's simple, just use the analog stick to move left and right and move it backwards to make sharper turns. What makes it so fun is that the design of each segment is so well done, and each time you slide, it doesn't feel shoehorned in, and feels more like an action scene in an animated movie. There are also these parts of the game where you'll need to open a door by using these crystal ball things.
That's just it. I just find them fun.
There are also these bomb barrel things, where they'll either be used for breaking open sealed doors, or even fucking flying, which is just awesome. You also get these berries, where if you hit them out of a tree, or if they're already falling, you can catch them and use them to traverse through a swamp, or usually fucking molten lava.
How the fuck can these berries handle molten lava? I wonder if you could actually eat these things.
You know what mechanic is really fun, and I mean really fucking fun? Riding the shells. Basically, there are these big missile creatures with legs, and if you tire them out, you can ride them, and the segments with these big dicks are pretty damn challenging, let me tell you.
But you'd think riding these things would be enough now, would it? Well, if not, you could believe you can fly.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. Yes, fly. In the last level in the game, you can use these shells to fly, and it is so cool to have real free flight controls. It is a little bit of a challenge to get used to, but trust me, it is genuinely fun, and is a part of the final boss, which I will get to later.
But enough about all this stuff. Let's talk about important stuff. Like gameplay. The gameplay in Rayman 2 is simple but fun.
First things first, we've got the lums. There are 4 types of them, with only one being necessary for completion, where the rest are just for help. We have one in blue, one in green, one in red, and one in yellow. The blue is for swimming to keep your air from going down, the green is for checkpoints, the red is for health, and the yellow is the main collectible, and there is even another version with a smiley face that is worth 5 lumps. Aside from the final level, each one has a total of 50 lumps to obtain, and some of them are hidden in these cages that you need to break by simply shooting at them. That might sound very simple, and it is, but I always found it satisfying to break them open and get more of those sweet, sweet lumps. Some of the cages are even hidden somewhat well, so the cages are handled well. By the way, getting the lumps is required to progress in the game, but you don't have to get all of them, and plus I was going to 100% the game anyway. There is a cool Dreamcast exclusive collectible though, that being these crystals. Collect enough, and you'll unlock minigames in another exclusive part of the Dreamcast version, Glowbox Village. They're fun enough, but nothing all that special. However, there is also another Glowbox minigame for every time you complete a level, and honestly, I don't know if I'm just shit, but I straight up just cannot do them. Lastly are the 4 masks of Polycus, who is this godlike character, and you'll need to take them to Polycus to take down the pirates. You basically collect them at the end of certain levels with guardians in them. There are also a variety of hazards and enemies, like robot apes, giant spiders, and big barrels. Battling the pirates is kinda cool. You dodge lasers and shoot at them, and that's it. But still, kinda fun. The death system in this game is quite interesting, however. Since you have a health bar and no lives, all that dying does is decrease your health, and if you lose all of your health, you start over at the very beginning of the level segment, not even the whole level itself. Needless to say, it's pretty generous. As for other things, we do have the TNCs, which are these group of things that won't stop arguing on who's the real king. They're fine, if a little bit unfunny, I gotta be honest, and they do unlock the doors to the next levels for you.
One thing in any version of Rayman 2 that pisses me off to no end, and something I honestly cannot believe anyone has talked about yet, is the lack of an exit level option.
Yeah, you heard me. No exit level option, and that's a big issue considering that sometimes you would end up having to retry some, likely by either not finding or failing to catch the lumps, which is why I save stated. It doesn't ruin the game by any means, but an option to exit a level is just a normal thing to add in platformers, so why is Rayman 2 an exception? Well, at least the level design in Rayman 2 more than makes up for that.
The levels in this game are absolutely fantastic and incredibly memorable. They make up for any criticism I throw at the game.
There are a lot of awesome levels in the game. One of my personal favorites is the Cave of Bad Dreams, since you enter it through another level on a mission to get an elixir. Not to mention the vehicles to mess with are also really fun, like this rotating chair, this jet ski-like level with this snake called Sam, and more. There are also some interesting puzzles to break the pace here and there, making the levels even more fun, and the fact that the game does a really good job at making you feel like you are slowly but surely getting to the prison ship. What about the boss battles, though? The boss battles in this game are not exactly the best parts. All of the Guardians don't exactly challenge you. The first boss is quite shit, sadly. You just swing your way towards the Guardian and hit the ice spike and he's down. The second boss, I don't know if this Guardian even counts because you just stand on top of him, but the true second boss is alright. He chases you and you just avoid his attacks and jump high to hit a spike to land on him and he just takes damage. Repeat it like 4 times and you've won. But then the final boss happens, and it is pretty great. You use the flying shell, and you really get tested here. You fly in and out to retrieve the crystals? To fire at Razorbeard. Do that enough, and he's down. This boss can be repetitive, but in my opinion, it's just so fun to slowly take him down, and yes, there are 2 phases, but the first isn't all that great. Just attack and avoid. What about smaller things like the graphics? This game looks pretty good. Yes, it does look low poly, but still good. It has a cool style to it. And hey, though my footage isn't showing it, this game runs at a smooth and consistent 60 FPS, which is crazy for a game from the year 2000. That's not all, by the way. There's even small water physics details, like the splash effects, and the fact that every time you leave the water, you get a little drip animation for a small while.
This game, in my opinion, stands the test of time and feels very standout. Even the N64 version looks good.
Lastly, the music. The soundtrack in this game is phenomenal, and one of the best of its time. It's atmospheric, catchy, memorable, and beautiful. I do kinda prefer Rayman 1's soundtrack, but Rayman 2's is still amazing. Speaking of which, that's all I can say about Rayman 2: The Great Escape, and man, what an amazing time. Not every version of this game is equal though, so I highly recommend the Sega Dreamcast version if you've never played it before. I might take a look at the other versions of this game one day, but that's not for tomorrow. Like I said, this game is not flawless, but I completely understand where critics are coming from. In fact, I'll go as far as to consider this one of my favorite games, period, and I'm not joking about that. On the scale of quality, I'm giving Rayman 2: The Great Escape on Dreamcast a solid 9 out of 10. Take it.
Well, that was a journey. I hope you've all enjoyed my video, and if you want more, I am actually planning to do another review, so you look forward to that. What is the next game? You'll find out later. This was Max Rabbit you just watched. See you on the other side.